Hi, welcome to the F1 Time Portal, a Formula One history podcast started by two Formula One zealots. I'm your host, Rosa.
And I'm your Yellow Submarine host, Luigi. And today we're taking you back to the second part of the 1966 race review season. So let's go. So before we get into it, now it's my turn to ask you. Zealots is a unique word.
It is a very unique word. I do use it quite a bit, actually. It's kind of in my vocab. I like it. I like the extreme nature of the word.
Yeah, it's got very hard sounding consonants, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And Z words are rare. Good for Scrabble.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I'm a champion Scrabble player.
Oh, are you?
Yeah. Have we ever played, Luigi?
No, I'm not very good at Scrabble, but what I do is, like, do you what's your rule about the dictionary? Can people use the dictionary as a source, or do you time limit their time with the dictionary?
You're not allowed to use the dictionary as a source.
That is my rule. How do you go about checking a word?
Oh, you can use it to check a word, but you have to have said it. You can't just go looking through the dictionary for a word to make sure it's there or to think of a word. You have to go, is zealot a word? And everyone will go, I don't know. And then you go, okay, let's look it up.
Okay, then I can't play Scrabble with you. I've just lost my edge, which is pretending to look up a word while actually researching.
Finding a word.
Yeah.
That would be cheating.
I don't call that cheating, because if I make up a word, you go, I haven't heard that word, kabottle. But that's because those are the letters I've got, and I'm looking very quickly for other words around there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is Yellow Submarine one of your favourite songs, Luigi? I'm going to say no.
Definitely not.
Yeah, I'm going to say no. Yeah.
But you know what? It was released in 1966, and it brings us back to the time. That's the era when Yellow Submarine was being released.
Yes,
and,
it does. Yeah. Not much to do with cars. There isn't even a yellow car on the grid, is there? Is there a yellow car on the grid? No.
Is there we found out last episode that New Zealand's racing colours. I wonder what country's got yellow. I reckon there would be a yellow racing colour car country. I wonder who it is.
I don't know. I can't
maybe
even.
Maybe if you want to Google it while I'm doing my little spiel about race 3. Okay. I can see there's little bits where I'm going to talk for a while. You quickly look up racing car country yellow, and I'm sure there's people saying it's. I was going to say France, but I'm sure theirs is blue.
Theirs is blue. I think it's actually blue. Yeah, it's blue.
Yeah, so what would be yellow? What would my guess be? Like, Holland is orange.
Yeah.
And McLaren sort of took that with papaya. My guess would be Canada. Theirs would be red and white, surely. Like matching their flag.
Nothing's coming up.
Oh, really? So yellow's available?
Might not even be.
But that's a good colour for a racing car.
Oh, hang on. Cuba. Yellow.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Cuba. There you go.
That's their colour. I don't think we're going to see that one on the road anytime soon.
And what was the last actual yellow car that was actually on the grid, though, Luigi?
I think of Jordan.
Was it a Jordan?
Like with they called it the Buzz and Hornet or something because it had this.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, but that was in the late 90s.
Yep.
And it was only for a short number of years. But I'm sure there's been other yellows. Not often though.
No.
Yeah, interesting. But even that yellow was not based on country of origin.
Renault launched a bright yellow.
Of course, Renault. Yeah,
race livery in Melbourne. There you go.
But even the turbo Renaults they were white and yellow. Okay. But they had a very distinctive yellow feature, and I loved it. I loved the look of that yellow, especially I think it was 77, their Renault turbo car.
Yeah.
Really cool design and lots of yellow. Okay.
And you're right. The 1999 Benson and Hedges Jordan, that was kind of yellow.
Yeah. I remember Frentzen was in the running for that championship.
Yes, he was.
At one stage.
Yes, you're right.
With not many races to go, he was up there. So, lots of interesting things there. We'll get there.
Yellow, I think colours have to be a special episode as well.
Oh, gosh, so many. Okay. We'll get there.
Okay. Where are we?
So we're up to race 3 of 9. and this is actually the French Grand Prix. So it's at Reims, took place on the 3rd of July, 48 laps, reduced from 53. There were 13 drivers, so not many drivers in this race, and a 3x2x3 grid. So there was some excitement before a wheel had turned in anger.
Oh, that's very poetic, Luigi. Speaking about words, are they your words?
This time they are my words. I wish they were Mike Lang's, but no, he's not ready for that.
No, the young graduate hasn't gotten his straps, hasn't gotten
not
there yet.
Yeah, his little lackey worker. So on Wednesday, prior to the race, the Cooper team had some fairly major changes. For they hosted there were 3 changes of their driver lineup. One, Ginther had left and returned to Japan, and this was signaling to everyone that the Honda team was about to make a return to F1, and their new car was nearly ready. And let's not forget, Ginther did win a race with Honda last year, but that was the old regulation. So this is Honda's finally got their new regulation car ready. Ginther's place was taken over by Eamon, and Eamon was released by McLaren because the McLaren team was struggling to get one car race worthy, let alone 2. Now, don't forget, this is only race 3 of McLaren's history.
Yes.
So, obviously, a bit of teething problems, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Cooper hosted a 3rd driver, none other than Mr. John Surtees, fresh from winning the previous race, the Belgian Grand Prix, in a Ferrari. So, I'm going to hand this over to you, Rosa, because you're the Ferrari deep dive expert. What happened?
Well, I think this is another case of being a victim of Ferrari politics, I'm afraid. So the story goes that Surtees was, he was a very principled and determined person, and he liked to do things his own way. Can you think of someone else that does that, Luigi?
Yeah, and I'm going to go straight to when Fangio was driving for Ferrari in 56, and they clashed heavily because you can't have 2, I wouldn't say alpha males. What's the other term to use? Kingpins.
Yeah.
Strong. You can't have 2 strong personalities.
Yes. Yeah. And Enzo was very much like that as well. So Surtees already had quite a prickly relationship with their Ferrari racing director, Eugenio Dragoni. And when Ferrari had to cut its Le Mans entry for that year from 3 cars to 2, Surtees told Dragoni that he was the quicker one because it was out of him and Ludovici Scafotti, and that he should start the race and try to beat the Ford GT40 challenge.
Which I think was in the movie, the Ford versus Ferrari. Yeah, because that GT40 is such an awesome looking car.
It is.
But and the Ferrari would have been awesome too, but for some reason the Ford GT40 has a special place in everyone's hearts.
It does. Anyway. Yeah. So Dragoni had other ideas. Scafotti was the nephew of Fiat boss Gianni Agnelli. I don't know why I think I just want to say here we go.
Yeah.
He was going to be present at the race. So he thought it would be nice if his nephew could start the race.
Of course.
Yeah. That's very, very Italian politics right there.
Not nepotistic at all.
Not at all. So if that was one in the eye for Il Grande John, so that was his nickname, Big John. So Surtees' nickname was Big John, then too bad. So those are the exact words that are written in the book that I was referencing. So that's how Dragoni spoke of this incident. So Dragoni then paired Scafotti with Mike Spence, and in the other car he had Bandini and a French guy, Jean Guichet. So Surtees would not be required. So the final straw, I know, that's a bit of a slap in the face, but it gets worse because officially to the press, Dragoni said it was because Surtees had not recovered from his accident in the previous September.
Yeah.
Which was very odd given that Surtees, as you just said, Luigi, had just won the previous weekend in Spa in Formula One.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah. So he quit immediately and he went to Cooper and he became their number 1 driver, ousting Rindt as their number 1 driver and putting his nose out of joint. And I think they end up being quite their relationship was not ever good after that either because Rindt,
he was ousted from being the race leader.
Yeah.
What a soap opera. I mean, there's so many twists in the story that you've just explained, and I can't believe Ferrari would even say Surtees was recovering from the accident that when he just won an actual F1 race. And I just want to check that F1 race was for 2 hours and 9 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not like he was struggling to do a race. No. It's just it's comical. No. It's like they think I don't want to say Ferrari think, because it's not Ferrari.
No.
It's the Ferrari leadership that think people are idiots.
Sad. Yeah. And silly. It's funny because apparently Surtees and Clark were really close friends as well. I think they'd come up through the ranks. Oh, not through the ranks. I think they'd raced in. There's all these. They
debuted the same race, I think, or within a race of each other. Remember? So.
I think they connected quite well, and there was all these other championship races that they raced. And as soon as Surtees joined the Ferrari team, then he had to kind of stop his friendship with Clark, because there was a big rivalry between the British teams and the British drivers and the Italian team. So, it's a bit sad that that kind of stuff happens, but it doesn't happen now. All the drivers on the grid now in 2024 are all good mates. You believe that? Yeah.
Or they're just I wouldn't say they're just not necessarily anti each other.
No, they're not.
Some of them are friends, but they're not like I don't know if Hamilton and Verstappen in 2024 from the early 20s. I wonder if they wouldn't be going on barbecues or anything.
No, that's true. I mean, but it's look. We do know that it's all PR as well, that, all these drivers are good friends, and as teammates they all support each other and stuff, and that's far from the truth. But they do spend a lot of time together as friends.
Yeah, and especially in this era and those days.
Yeah. All right, let's get back to the race.
Interesting. Yeah, so to the race. So not only was the attention now on Cooper, and can I just say, so before I move on, a lot of people actually say that this was a pretty big move in the season when Surtees left Ferrari to go to Cooper, because there's a strong view that if this hadn't happened, he would have had a good run at this championship.
Oh, right.
So this may have
let's keep an eye on that.
Let's pin it a little bit. Yeah, because it was said at the time. It wasn't said in the Mike Lang book. I remember reading it in other areas.
We like these sliding doors moments.
All Surtees had to do was stick it out, and maybe he could have taken this one.
Yes, okay.
So that's a bit of a giveaway that he doesn't. Okay. So, but that's not giving away too much. It's saying who doesn't win it, not who does win it. Like Bondurant, he's not going to win it either. No. So just making sure that I've softened the spoiler impact. He's cut out 2 people. Let me see who's left. So not only was all the attention on Cooper for this race, but the first practice session was actually headed by Surtees in his new Cooper, followed by Rindt in the Cooper.
Okay, that's pretty impressive. We haven't even heard of Cooper much this season, and suddenly, in the hands of Surtees, it's a contender.
For sure, Surtees was wanting to be faster than Rindt, and no doubt Rindt wanted to be faster than Surtees. Yeah. They probably escalated that team dramatically suddenly.
Yeah, nothing like a bit of competition.
Yeah. So on Thursday, the Ferrari team arrived, so that must have been on a Wednesday, and Mike Lang even called them the new Ferrari team.
Oh, Mike Lang, classy. That's a bit of a dig there.
Yeah.
British bias much?
Oh, big time, yeah. So Bandini, your little friend, is promoted to team leader.
Good on him. He's earned his stripes.
Yeah, he's won a couple of. He's won 1 or 2 races, I think, at this stage.
Yep.
Yeah, and he's leading the championship, ironically. With his 2nd and 3rd, and he was supported by Mike Parks, who is actually now making his Formula One debut. So another little sliding doors opportunity. Not that Mike Parks becomes a big player, but he's that's his opportunity, and it came up. So it quickly became apparent that this track was well suited to the Ferraris, and Bandini made light work of beating the time set by Coopers the prior day. However, Surtees did a great job following Bandini, and using him as a slipstream, tried to improve his time, but actually ended up sitting in 2nd place. So Lotus were continuing to have a horrible time, with Arundel struggling with the H16 BRM, and Clark hit a bird at high speed, which actually injured his eye and put him out of the race for the remainder of the weekend. So his car was taken over by Rodriguez.
Oh my gosh, that is a train wreck. And like now I'm absolutely calling on Sterling Moss vibes, having found a new home.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Like, his season just won't start.
Hey.
And a bird in the face?
I know.
What are the chances? So anyway, when practice was finished, Bandini secured pole with a time of 2 minutes 7.8, followed by Surtees in the Cooper and Parks in the Ferrari.
That's a great result for Parks. Third on his debut, and Bandini eventually got pole. So, like, even if the Ferrari is suited to the track, they still needed to drive them well. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, true. And let's not forget, Surtees was generally faster than Bandini when they were in the same car.
Yes.
So there's another little tip of the hat to that little comment I made earlier. So Brabham qualified fourth in the Brabham and Rindt was fifth in the Cooper. And Stewart was not attending his race as he was still recovering from that horrible, horrible accident that we talked about at Spa.
Yes.
I'm laughing only because I know he's okay.
Yes.
But yeah, not surprised.
Well, I'm saying that race was 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks isn't a long time though. If you've got back injuries and rib injuries, So,
and if you've ever had a rib injury, they take forever to heal, and you can't do anything about it.
No.
There's no bandage. You just have to not laugh because laughing hurts.
Yes.
So race day itself was very hot, and when the flag fell, Surtees charged into the lead and actually charged ahead of the two Ferraris on either side.
Oh, I bet Enzo didn't like seeing that one little bit.
And I'm sure Surtees was loving it and just wished the race was over at the end of lap 1 or something. Yeah. However, this moment of glory was short-lived as Surtees suddenly slowed with a broken fuel pump.
Oh, no. Just the way these things happen, isn't it?
Yeah. So this left Bandini in the lead, followed by Brabham and Parks. And these drivers were virtually nose to tail, with the three Cooper Maseratis of Eamon, Rindt and Siffert following Parks. So Surtees was now in the pits, and while a new fuel pump was being installed, he watched his former teammate slowly pull away from Brabham.
I have to shout out Parks. It's interesting he doesn't become a big name because he's having a pretty good debut here.
Yeah. So, interesting. At quarter race distance, Bandini was now 2 seconds ahead of Brabham, and the race was now between these two as Parks in the Ferrari was 30 seconds further back. So, you can't expect him to keep up when it's his very first race in Formula One, but still good effort, like you said. So, this is where much of the excitement lay now because while Bandini and Brabham were up ahead having their little duel, but still 2 seconds apart, Parks was having an almighty battle with Hill in the BRM.
So Hill was on a bit of a charge here because he qualified 8th and he was using the H16 engined BRM for qualifying, but then he resorted to the older V8 for the race. So he did well to get past the three Cooper Maseratis. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Parks is fighting a world champion.
Yes.
And even if he's in the older V8 engine.
Yes.
But yeah. So the battle actually ended soon though because Hill's engine suddenly had an issue and he was forced into the pits. And this allowed Holm and the Brabham up into a distant 4th place. At half distance, Bandini led by 13 seconds over Brabham. And Parks and Holm were the only other drivers on the same lap. So things were starting to gap out a bit by this point. By lap 30, and now remember this is a 46-lap race, Bandini was now 26 seconds ahead, and he was actually still setting fastest lap times. Then suddenly on lap 32, the throttle cable snapped, and Bandini had to watch helplessly as Brabham cruised by into a surprising lead.
Oh, come on. Wasn't there a driver who drove the last few laps was it Monaco with a broken cable and he was holding it and driving one-handed? Was that Gurney?
Yeah.
Come on, Bandini.
Yeah. He needs to learn.
Yes.
I think it was Gurney, actually. And funnily enough, I think it was I listened to that episode today or yesterday. Mm-hmm. And we even joked about, how ridiculous it was. He didn't finish the race.
Okay.
And I think you even said in that race review, maybe he needed his two hands on the steering wheel because it was Monaco.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think I could drive a car.
No.
As I was thinking about it when you said it in that episode, I was thinking, when you're changing gears, you have to release the accelerator, put the clutch down.
Yes.
He's got to release the throttle cable with his hand.
Exactly.
Well, really, that's not easy.
No.
So the mere fact he did do it for quite a while, very impressive, and obviously beyond Bandini's skill set. And I think, and who knows, maybe he would have done it if the throttle cable was near him and it wasn't in that Ferrari design car.
That's right, exactly. Maybe it's the car's fault, not his fault that he couldn't do it.
But Bandini definitely shined in the absence of Surtees. So good on him for doing that, but obviously the result is not there for him today. So, or at that time of that day in the past. So now Brabham was easing up, and because his lead over Parks and the Ferrari was over 50 seconds.
Again, Parks is second now, is he?
Yeah.
I mean, he's doing a great job. He's staying out of trouble. He's on debut. Well, since Hill fell away, he hasn't had much trouble to avoid, but still.
Okay. Brabham really eased off, though, towards the end.
Okay.
Because he didn't need to. And Brabham was known, and we were told this by those colleagues that we knew used to work with Brabham, that you win at the slowest speed possible. And so he actually eased off so much that he won by just 9.5 seconds, but he was in control managing the situation.
Yeah, well, he knows, like you and I do, that reliability in these times was very delicate. So you don't push the car if you don't need to. Otherwise, something's going to snap, break, go wrong. So he was actually really clever, really smart drive.
Yeah. So this means that Jack Brabham is the first driver to win an F1 car, to win an F1 race in his own car. This is a major pivotal time, and we've got a few sort of quiz questions here.
Yeah, we do.
So Parks completed an impressive debut with second place, and Holm, also in the Brabham, finished a distant third, ahead of an anxious Rindt in fourth, who had virtually no fuel left.
So this is Brabham's first win since 1960 Portugal, Luigi.
Wow.
That's 6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd have thought he was over it by then, wouldn't you?
Yeah. And this was the last race at Reims. This was the original French GP track. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And as we mentioned before, Farina died on his way here, which is a bit sad. Yeah.
Yeah, we give that a lot of airtime, but that's because he died before his time.
Did.
But now this wasn't the Brabham team's first win because Gurney had won.
But this was Brabham's first win.
Yeah, this was a bit of a special thing despite the fact that it wasn't the team's first win. But 6 years. If you think of a driver that hasn't won for 6 years, you sort of think they're over it. But no, he's not over it.
No. So, after race 3, we have Jack Brabham in the lead on 12 points. Mm-hmm. Wow, he was nowhere before.
Yeah, I think he had 3 or 4 points from the fourth place.
Must have been,
race. Yeah.
Lorenzo Bandini in second on 10 points, and then we've got 3 drivers all on 9 points, Surtees, Stewart and Rindt. And on the constructors' side, we've got Ferrari in the lead on 21 points and Brabham Repco on 12 points and then BRM and Cooper on 9. Okay.
And just interesting on that little championship table, the table you're looking at, Rosa, it shows you on the far left column the step up or down that they've done.
Yes.
So Brabham jumped up six positions to first.
Yes.
So he must have been 7th in the championship. To go from 7th to first, I know it's early in the season, but it is 3 races, so things are starting to take shape, you know?
Yep.
So, yeah. Okay, so we're up to the 4th race of the season, the British Grand Prix. It was at Brands Hatch on the 16th of July, 80 laps, 20 drivers, and the grid formation was a 3x2x3. And we don't often elaborate, but every now and then I'll do it. 3x2 means it's not staggered like we see in 2024. and has been like this for like maybe 30 years. But it's actually 3 drivers side by side, and then 2 drivers side by side on the next row, then 3 drivers side by side on the next row. So technically, the way they start, they've got a straight line space in front of them.
Yes.
Yeah. But pole is, like we talked about this, I think the drivers choose where they want to start, whether it's the far left or the far right, and obviously you're aiming for the racing line.
Yes.
So funnily enough, I think third might be, for a 3x2x3, third might be worse than fourth.
Yes.
Because fourth might be right on the racing line, just like the race pole position person. So, yeah, just something we don't often talk about it, but, yeah, good to remind people that that's why we mention the grid formation. So to the race, Ferrari were absent from this race, supposedly due to a general workers' strike in Italy.
What? So I can presume by your tone of voice there, Luigi, that the word supposedly means that you think that was questionable.
Yeah, and that's not because I think so. It's because, and now Mike Lang's British bias.
Yeah,
I think he said these are the words that Mike Lang used in his book. So having got to know Mike Lang through reading his books over many years, I would say that he's being very kind, and I suspect there's a very shallow, poor reason for Ferrari not to attend the British Grand Prix, because it's the British Grand Prix, and the British teams and the Ferrari were not best friends.
No, but I think your prejudice against Ferrari is also shining through here a little bit. I can't find anything anywhere to suggest it wasn't due to the strikes. Like, they had just won the Belgian Grand Prix and they nearly won the French Grand Prix. So why wouldn't Ferrari want to attend?
Well, two things to address there. One, I don't have a Ferrari bias.
No, prejudice.
You've got prejudice. Oh, prejudice. Okay. When Prost was driving for Ferrari, I was a Ferrari fan. I'm telling you now. But I did read on a Stack Exchange website.
What about when Schumacher was driving for Ferrari?
I'm not really a big Schumacher fan.
Oh, so, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So I read on a Stack Exchange website that Ferrari did not attend due to another metal worker strike in Italy, which prevented Ferrari from attending. And I note the term another. So they obviously, I think Italy was famous for,
they were in their striking era. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I even remember a personal anecdote from this, but this obviously is 66, but my anecdote goes to the mid 80s. And I was in Italy with my family for a family holiday and see the distant family over there. We were in a city called Napoli or Naples, depending on how you say it.
Yes.
And I do remember massive piles of rubbish everywhere on the main streets, because there was a rubbish workers' strike.
Yes.
And the rubbish had nowhere to go. And it was everywhere.
Wow.
And it smelled awful.
Right.
So I can only imagine in 66 there was more passion for those strikes than in 85.
Yes, definitely.
So there was also, back to the race, there was also a shortage of engines for the teams, and in particular, Lotus was impacted. Apparently, they had only one Coventry Climax 2-litre engine available.
So they only had one engine, and it's the old underpowered one at that. Can it get much worse for Lotus?
Well, they probably were like, it's this or the H16. And they were in a real dilemma. Yeah. So BRM were willing to lend them one of their old BRM V8 engines, but ironically, they themselves were in a spot of bother as the H16 engine was going through modifications.
Yeah, to unlemon it.
Yeah. And even funnier is that the McLaren team managed to blow one of their new Ford V8s in pre-race testing, so they too had to rely on a backup engine, which was a Serenissima.
Wow.
Serenissima. Is that right?
Yeah, Serenissima.
Yeah. Okay. Eagle was still stuck using the old 2.7-litre Coventry Climax engine for their own car.
What is going on with these engines this season? Climax has really made a massive gaping hole in the sport by withdrawing their engine.
Yeah, I think maybe they could have made more money if they just did one more year. I think they would have got a lot of business, you know?
Yeah.
Because they were all addicted to Climax engines. They all had them.
Yes.
And you can see there's a real struggle going on here. So Brabham, on the other hand, were totally organised and they dominated Thursday practice sessions. And on Friday, nobody was able to challenge their Thursday times.
That Repco deal that he has made is the difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess no one else really on the grid had any connections to Australia because Repco was an Australian engineering company, weren't they?
Yeah.
I do think didn't they have like the contract for another formula on the grid, like maintaining their engines, but it was nowhere near Formula One.
Well, they had Trans-Tasman engines, so they had this. That was like a special small championship between Australia and New Zealand from memory, 4 races in each of those 2 countries. And they probably did lower Formula 2, but I'm imagining Jack Brabham did an exclusive deal because I'm sure people knocked on Repco's door and said, hey, look, we're having all sorts of dramas here. Yeah. Can we have your engine? And they were like, no, we're exclusive with Brabham. And Brabham signed them up exclusively, and that's life. That's why exclusive deals exist.
I mean, that's just a great team management move there from Brabham to go that way. He took a chance. I mean, he did take a chance on a smaller engine from an untried company that had nothing to do with F1 really, but it's paid off.
And underpowered.
Yes.
Like 120 horsepower lower than the H16 and 100 lower than the rest. So he really was taking a chance, and he paid dividends, maybe. So so Brabham secured pole with a time of 1 minute 34.5, followed by Holm about 0.3 behind, and Gurney was next in the Eagle Climax over 1.3 seconds slower.
Pretty good time though by Gurney in that new car. That Eagle team is doing much better than the new McLaren's team so far.
Yeah, and it's funny to know that we have McLaren today and there's no Eagle anymore.
No Eagle.
So it shows, that being quickest in the early days doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be around.
No.
So, And Brabham got pole. We didn't pick this up, and I mean, it's going to be too hard to check, but this might also be similar to that win record that, when was the last time Brabham got a pole? Probably back in his Cooper days.
Probably. Yeah, I'd say so. Yes.
Yeah. So further points about qualifying, Hill in the BRM was 4th, and then Clark in the Lotus Climax. Stewart was now back, having recovered, qualifying 8th in the BRM, and Surtees was the fastest Cooper driver in his little rivalry with Rindt, qualifying 6th. So, on race day, there were uncertain conditions. At first it was rainy, then it started to dry out. The track, while damp, was drying out as it progressed. However, Rindt and Surtees both chose to start the race with wet tyres.
Will this be an inspired call?
Yeah, the mere fact I'm mentioning it doesn't mean it is, but it means there's obviously a lot of uncertainty out there.
Yeah.
And remember, this is the era where there's no computers forecasting the rain. They're literally looking up at the sky in 66.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And looking at the wind flags, I'm imagining. Those are the 2 things, the sky and the wind flags.
Yeah.
So, So at race start, Brabham made a strong start. And by the end of the first lap, he had already built up a 2-second lead. Behind him, Hill and Surtees touched. While damage was minimal, they were able to continue. At the end of the first lap, Brabham was leading, followed by Gurney in the Eagle, so he was doing well in this car. Clark in the Lotus, Rindt in the Cooper, and Surtees in the other Cooper. Hill was in the BRM, McLaren in the McLaren, and then Holm was next.
What? I thought Holm qualified 2nd or 3rd or something. What is he in 8th now? That's got to be a nonsense start, Luigi. Why didn't you flag that?
Well, it's like Mike Lang didn't call it. This nonsense start has caught me out as much as it's maybe or it didn't catch you out.
No.
But no reason was given. So maybe this is an under the radar nonsense start, or maybe because he's not British.
Yeah, maybe it's because he didn't have the expectation around him. Like Mike Lang would have just thought that was a normal start for Holm.
Yeah, that's a very insulting way of saying it. But
yes.
Yeah, so don't forget the track is still quite wet. And because of this, Rindt and Surtees were able to pass Clark, because they were the 2 that went on the wet tyres, right?
Yeah.
And Rindt even moved up to 2nd place ahead of Gurney.
Well, so far their decision's looking pretty good.
By lap 10, Brabham had a 7-second lead with Rindt just ahead of his teammate, Surtees, because Rindt had a spin, which must have cost him some seconds, but it didn't cost him a position against Surtees, which I think was important to him.
He actually spun in wet weather tyres too.
Yeah.
Rindt,
oh, yeah, good point.
Come on, what are you doing?
Yeah, this is your opportunity to show how upset you are.
Yeah.
As the track began to dry, so too did the handling of the wet weather shot Coopers, and this helped Brabham to extend his lead. So he was obviously under a bit of threat maybe. By lap 28, Hill in the BRM and Clark in the Lotus had now caught up to the Cooper pair, which was Surtees and Rindt, and by lap 30 they had passed both the struggling Coopers.
Well, that Cooper, I guess the wets weren't performing very well in the dry now, huh?
So it seems.
And
the time loss at a pit stop was probably not worth it, maybe, because remember they didn't have 1 or 2 second pit stops back then.
They were.
I don't know how long they were actually. I haven't checked. It's not really mentioned much.
Doesn't ever really get mentioned, does it?
Yeah, I think the tire strategies of obviously we don't have. Now we have soft, mediums, hards, and all that sort of thing. They didn't have that in those days. No. You changed tyres if you had a problem. It wasn't a strategy to go faster. So because I think it was never even on the radar to think, I'll lose 40 seconds with the pit stop, but I'll gain 50 seconds through speed. Because the pit stops were too slow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
At that level of strategy. Yeah.
So by half distance, Holm had now dislodged both of the Coopers, and now the Brabhams, because of the weather changing, because of drying, and now the Brabhams were first and second, with Jack Brabham leading by over 20 seconds from his teammate Holm. Hill was now in third, and he started to pull away from Clark, with the reason for this being clearer as Clark headed for the pits with virtually no brakes left. So Clark's awesome season continues.
They had to save their pit stops for everything else going wrong with the car. Brakes, clutches, throttles. Forget about the tyres.
And remember that driver that came in, I think it may have been Gurney, when he needed a new steering wheel. They didn't have one. So he was retired. So, maybe making sure they have steering wheels.
Yes.
So with his brakes fixed, Clark slipped to 6th place. That's a very fast fix, actually. And he was out a lap in arrears. That might be a reflection more of retirements, I'm guessing, than Clark. Then Clark started a charge, and he quickly caught the 2 Coopers, who no doubt were having handling issues due to the dry conditions. And so obviously changing tyres was not considered worthwhile.
Yep.
So while he was a lap behind, despite passing them, he continued to push on. When I say he, I mean Clark. And amazingly, Clark managed to catch and pass them again. So Clark was back up to 4th place with 5 laps remaining in the race.
Look, I'm going to say what an amazing comeback drive, but I mean, that's just typical Clark, isn't it? Like we've heard that again and again. He's had a shocker of a season so far he was a defending dual world champion. He must have been so frustrated. So I'm guessing he was just driving out of frustration. And that car is just not with him, but that skill and determination have not gone anywhere. I love Clark. I think he's fast becoming my favourite driver of the 60s. I'm going to have I'm going to have lots of favourite drivers at the end of this, Luigi, I feel.
It's really tough. It's really tough because I've got my top 4 or 5 drivers, and I know that Prost being up there is based on a degree of nostalgia, and that was when I was first watching F1. So I know that there's an element of that in this. But if I try to remove the emotion, it's hard to find where to fit everyone in. You've got Fangio, Moss, Clark, Stewart. These guys are just unbelievable legends.
Yep.
And and for some reason it's it's a tough one to try to do. I don't think I can do it. It ends up being not only an argument within myself, but with other people that have their own battles like mine.
Yeah.
So, So at the front, Brabham had eased up, and again, he took the win by 9.6 seconds. When I say again, he eased up by about, and to win by about the similar margin as the last race. So he won by about 9.6 seconds ahead of Holm. Hill finished third, and he was also managing a sagging oil pressure issue, and Clark was 4th, and Rindt was holding on to 5th place. So McLaren actually finished in 6th place, with the New Zealander earning his first points in his own car.
Good on him. There I was saying earlier how much better Eagle was doing, and then he goes and proves me wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he qualified pretty badly, but, you know, he wasn't using a great engine at this point, and he finished in the points.
Yeah.
And Brabham.
And that's pretty.
Yeah. No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is a lot like Bruce McLaren's entire career.
Yes.
You know how many times he was always up there,
yes,
and someone would retire and he'd win the race. He was such a good driver in that regard, but we've talked about this before. He wasn't the top tier, but he was not far off, and he was always up there. So when the opportunity arose, he'd get it, and getting these points, that was out of character with him the whole weekend.
He was just very level-headed, and he very consistent, and he just maximised every opportunity that came his way, I think.
Yeah.
I'd like to think of him.
Okay.
And Brabham's win here ends a streak of 4 wins by Jim Clark at the British Grand Prix.
That's a big thing.
Australian.
Yeah. I don't know if did you know that, or did Mike Lang mention it? I don't think Mike Lang would have mentioned that.
No,
that's going
Mike
against
Lang
his views.
did not mention that. I think
course
Brabham,
not. Yeah.
I've read a book on Brabham, so I think it was in Brabham's book.
Of course. Yeah. You need an Aussie to say it, not a British bias Mike Lang.
So after 4 races, Jack Brabham extends his lead. He's on 21 points. Jochen Rindt is in second place on 11 points. Holm is 10 points with Bandini, and Surtees is 9 points.
Okay.
And Brabham, Repco and Ferrari are tied on 21 points.
Interesting. Very tight. And Ferrari weren't even in this race, so that doesn't help the cause. Okay, ready for the next race?
Ready.
Race 5 of 9, the Dutch Grand Prix. So this is at Zandvoort. It's on the 24th of July. 90 laps, which is, funnily enough, every other race was going down. This one went up from 80 laps. 17 drivers with 18 participating. That might come through in the race. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And the grid formation was 3x2x3. So with this race only a week after the British Grand Prix, there was curiosity if all the engine dramas from that previous race were resolved. And also, Ferrari were back.
Yay, those metal workers, they got what they needed. They're back on the tools.
Yeah. Was that was all metal workers or just Ferrari metal workers?
No, I think it was the whole country.
The whole country, yeah. They're very good at being aligned with their unionism.
They are,
at that time. So on the first practice day, Brabham and Holm set the fastest times of the day, with Clark a very impressive third. The reason for this was that he was still using the old Climax 2-litre engine while the Brabhams were using their 3-litre Repco engines.
That is just remarkable. Like, how was Clark able to do that? Sorry, don't answer that. I know how. He's a gun.
Yeah, he is. So I wondered why you were asking a stupid question.
Yes.
Because at the final practice session, there was no change at the front, with Brabham securing pole with a time of 1 minute 28.1, with Holmes second and Clark third with a time of 1 minute 28.7. And amazingly, Gurney did well to claim fourth in his new team still. And Parks was next. We haven't heard about Parks. There was no Ferrari in the last race. He's up there. And he qualified that really good position after Bandini had issues and qualified 9th. So that's interesting. On race day, Brabham gave some humour to the grid and the crowd. Tell us about this, Rosa. What did Brabham do?
One of my friends actually, now that they know I'm doing this podcast on Formula One history, sent me this as a little article. But yeah, Jack Brabham, apparently he was getting a lot of media flack for being such an old man. So how old would he be now? He would be 40 or something.
I'll look it up. He would have been 40, because you've said it.
Yeah. So he appeared with a false beard and limped to his car with a walking stick.
Yeah.
That is such Aussie humour. That is so good.
And good on him. I think he's making his point, and it's hilarious. Yeah. And he's just won the last 2 races.
Exactly. That's right.
And the journalists are asking him about retirement.
Yeah.
That's what triggered it, you know?
That is funny.
So,
I I don't know. It's straight. Like, it wasn't that long ago that we had drivers on the grid that were like 50.
Yeah.
And that drivers were making their debut in their 30s and stuff.
Yeah. So it's fascinating. So good on him for that. And I think it's something that I think we should always remember about Brabham, that he had that sense of humour.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So to the race itself, Brabham actually shot into the lead, old Brabham. So Clark tried to challenge him at the Tarzan hairpin, but Brabham held firm and Clark settled for second ahead of Holm. So for the first 13 laps, these three cars were virtually nose to tail, with Hill and the BRM only a second or so further back in fourth place.
And we say this all the time, but that would have been some great racing to see.
Yeah, I know. So tight, so close. Then Holm's car had ignition trouble, and the pit stop to rectify this put him back in last place, which is a pity because he was up there. Meanwhile, Gurney in the Eagle had fought his way up to fourth place and was now visibly catching BRM and Hill in the BRM. And 20 seconds further back was Stewart, who himself was about 20 seconds ahead of Surtees. So there was a bit of a space out after that. There was a front gaggle that looked really exciting. Then it started to space out a bit, I guess. Gurney's chase of Hill came to nothing when his engine started to overheat.
That is the Eagle using the new Westlake engine yet?
No, I don't think so. I think they're still using the old Climax.
Okay.
Probably hanging out. I think that Westlake was taking a lot of development time and it was causing all sorts of issues. So, as in issues to get it up and running into their new car.
Right.
So up at the front, by lap 27, Clark was really applying pressure on Brabham. So finally we got Clark up there. Brabham was lapping, while Brabham was lapping Bandini in the Ferrari, look at that, lapping a Ferrari, and Siffert in the Cooper, Clark found a gap. Before Brabham could do anything about it, Clark was in the lead.
Oh, and let's not forget, Clark's car is still using that underpowered Climax engine.
Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it? So incredibly, Clark began to pull away.
Wow.
And at half distance, he was 5.5 seconds ahead. So Hill was now in third place, but over a minute further back, and the rest of the field was spaced out. All the attention, though, and rightly so, was on this leading pair because we were having a real battle, and Clark was back. You know, it's like his comeback with his old engine,
with his old car.
Yeah. Oh, actually, well, Brabham's car's also underpowered too, so it's probably a good match.
Matched. Yes.
Yeah, they were just using their driving skill to be pulling away from everyone else. I mean, Brabham was lapping Bandini.
Yes.
And let's not forget that Ferrari has 100 horsepower in hand.
More, yep.
Yeah. So Clark widened the gap to 10 seconds ahead of Brabham, but then a vibration damper broke on Clark's engine.
Oh.
This gave Clark a rougher ride, but he could still continue, or so he thought. The rough ride unfortunately fractured his water pump, and slowly but surely his water trickled away.
Oh, no. Okay, well, a little bit like oil. I don't know much about cars, but a little bit like oil, I don't reckon cars run very well without water.
Yeah, they need it, right? So by lap 76, and remember this is a 90-lap race, Brabham retook the lead. 2 laps later, Clark was in the pits for more water and only just managed to finish third behind Hill, as he was also nursing a further engine issue. So Brabham first, Hill in the BRM second, somewhat fortuitously I'd say.
Yep.
Clark third, amazingly to be honest.
Yes.
And Stewart BRM in fourth place.
Wow.
So not much to say about the race other than a really interesting duel at the front with those two guys.
Okay. So to the championship standings then, we've still got Brabham in the lead on 30 points. Graham Hill has surged up 5 places, Luigi, to be second on 14 points. Jackie Stewart has surged up 3 places to be third on 12 points. And then in the constructors, we have Brabham Repco in the lead on 30 points, Ferrari second on 22 points, and BRM third on 19 points.
It's turning out to be, now it's looking like a Brabham season.
Yeah, it is. I was just going to say there's been a topsy-turvy, like there's been a lot of movement in this year so far.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've done a lot of talking, Luigi.
Yeah.
Oh, where have you gone?
I'm here. I was just trying to look at the table because I think this is his third win in a row. Yes, it is.
Okay.
No, it's not his third win in a row. What race is this? Oh, the German Grand Prix is coming up.
Yep.
Yeah, it's third win in a row. So, yeah, very impressive.
Yeah, it is very impressive. His his engine reliability is showing through now. Anyway, as I was saying before you went away, we've done a lot of talking. I think we have to stop here and come back next time to continue with this season. And maybe, I don't know if we can finish it next episode. But anyway, we're going to take a break now so that people don't get bored listening to us for too long. And we'll see you all here next time.
Yep, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Okay, see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.
We have a Patreon.
Yay, we're a professional podcast now. So it means a lot to us if you are able to support the F1 Time Portal podcast.
For a small monthly fee, you not only get ad-free podcast content, you will also receive special episodes that are exclusively uploaded for our Patreon financial supporters.
We promise at least 2 additional exclusive episodes each month aligned to the decade we are up to in the show.
And you will also be able to make suggestions about any special episodes you may want us to research and present. We can't promise that we can do all of them, but we will consider them.
So, if that sounds like an entertainment bargain to you, go and sign up at patreon.com/F1 Time Portal today.
If you're enjoying our podcast, please tell your friends and non-F1 friends alike.
Yeah, and don't forget to rate us 5 stars or whatever highest is available on the podcast platform that you use.
We have a range of social media handles for you to connect with fellow listeners, so look up F1 Time Portal on all the usual platforms.
Or visit us at www.f1timeportal.com or email us at f1timeportal@gmail.com.
We would like to give credit to our primary reference materials, a series of books called Grand Prix by Mike Lang.
We also use many other written and digital references, which are in our show notes.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.